Hello. Thank you for tuning in to our Invest Charlotte 2023 launch conference. You're about to watch panel number 1, Today's Workforce. Enjoy.
It's great to be here. Elon University's not too far away, but you may, some of you may have visited campus, you may not have. We're thrilled to be here in Charlotte. And I want to talk a little bit about Elon, but also I love the topics in today's panel. Thank you to Invest for convening this important conversation. I serve on several economic development boards, and as you all are aware, for the second year in a row, North Carolina has been named top in the country for business. What you may not also be aware of is that for several decades, we are tops in higher education as well. We have a really diverse, comparatively to other states. One of the things I'm really proud of is the diversity of higher ed offerings that are across the state, including outstanding public university options. There are 32 private universities that give families and young people and adult learners lots of choice about where they want to learn and grow and develop. And Charlotte is home to several of those as well as in the region. Our campus is really just a short drive from here. And what's really exciting is that many of our alumni, Charlotte is a top destination for Elon alumni. Elon University was Elon College, and then about 23 years ago became Elon University, but there's a book written about Elon called Transforming a College. It's often used as a primer across the nation on how to build a national university. And it is a success story in higher education. Our graduation and outcomes are outstanding, and in the last few years, we've been ranked #1 for our classroom experience. So we're known for having great teachers. To give you perspective, Elon's been #1 for the last 2 years. Princeton was #2, and it's a good list to be on, and I love seeing Elon #1 on that list. The other hallmarks of our educational model are around study abroad, where we're also ranked #1 in the country for participation. About 85% of our students travel abroad, and so they have a global perspective. And so Charlotte is home to a global business environment, and that's probably one of the reasons so many of our students are connecting. And hopefully you've run across a few Elon grads or hired a few Elon grads in your work here. We have about 1,500 students graduate every year at Elon, and we pride ourselves on student success and being a student-centered culture. We're largely undergraduate focused, but we have some really exceptional graduate programs as well. One of those is our Elon Law School. So we have Elon lawyers practicing here in Charlotte, serving judges and in private practice. And so if you ever need a lawyer, we've got a lot of good Elon grads here in the area as well. I will say that because of the financial sector here in Charlotte, many of our business students, finance is our second largest major at the university. And so they end up in jobs all across the city, in banking and in capital venture work, and really proud of that. But personally, I'm also proud that Mecklenburg County Schools and the area county schools have Elon teachers, and we have started nursing, so nursing students and PA students and physical therapy, so the healthcare sector as well, when I was looking at where all of our alumni work. I think one of the most important things, you're hearing a lot about higher ed right now, and one of the most important things that I think about when I'm in my work today is ensuring that we stay student focused. There's a lot of rhetoric about higher ed. I used to say that I liked being on, that I felt like higher ed, we were kind of an island where you could exchange ideas and have great civic engagement. And I say I'm on a penny where, there's not, there's a lot of room out there. And, but Elon is committed to a diversity of thought and that people can find their own way. And so I'm really proud of that. One of the innovative things we're doing this year is that we have a group of students. We have, as well as study abroad, we have a really strong Study USA program. The United States is the most diverse country in the world. And so we encourage students to use the United States as a backdrop, to intern, to learn. And so we're coming with a group of students to Charlotte this fall, and it's in our sport management program. So there is so much happening in professional sports that our sport management majors are eager to spend a full semester interning and taking classes here in Charlotte. So we are commencing that in just a few weeks, and they're an alpha group, and they raised their hand to come. They're super excited, and I'm really excited to see where they land. So as you all know, with the shortages, I want you to know that the Elon graduates, many of them had multiple job offers. Right? So our business students, those usually come in October, and they're choosing about where they're going to live. When I graduated from college, it was a very much different scenario where I was taking my resume out and trying to get a job. For today's college graduate, because of what's happened in the workforce, those college students actually have several choices in front of them. And so, as a college president, I'm excited for them to have those options, but I know that it's creating a lot of tension for us as an employer as well. But also I know for many of you in the room, as you're trying to navigate the new workforce and the characteristics of this younger workforce, right? Like the things that are important to them from a benefits side, from the kinds of organizations and the professional development that they're seeking. So I love the topic of this first panel. And in our career services, we redesigned that about 10 years ago. And it's now a top 10 in the country because we put a focus on employers and trying to make sure we were connecting with employers on skill sets and bringing that information back in to our schools so that they can talk to faculty and continue to keep students aligned with what the workforce is needing. So I'm excited about this next panel, and I think it's really important that the dialogue continues. I'm pleased that Pfeiffer, and I know Lenore Ryan has someone here as well. There can't be a more important conversation between higher ed and employers, right? That we're in conversation, we're talking about what the needs are to make sure that your goals are met. We're only as good as our people. We all know that from our work. So we want to make sure you have great young people coming into your companies and into your businesses. So that's our investment. That's my life's work. And so we're excited to be here. So the panel is appropriately named Today's Workforce, Addressing the Realities of Current Workforce Challenges and Finding Opportunities. And the panel will be moderated by Keith Stanley, who is the CEO of University City Partners, which we know has been very busy as a nonprofit organization doing the critical work of creating opportunity and economic vitality in the community. So I will turn it over to Keith and the panelists. Thank you.
Well, I'm not Keith Stanley. I'm Max Crampton Thomas. Keith, turns out there's a lot of charitable organizations all over Charlotte, and Keith happened to go to the wrong Goodwill. He's almost here. So for now, I will be your moderator. So it's my pleasure to bring up the rest of my panelists. Scott Bullard, the president of Pfeiffer University. Jessica Feigenholtz, the practice leader and associate principal for Perkins & Will. And Cheryl Richards, the president and CEO of Catapult Employers Association. If you can all join me, and if we could all give them a round of applause as they come up to the stage. Whomever.
Would you like to?
Perfect. And I'll get closer. There we go. So to start off our discussion today, we've seen a number of disruptions over the last few years with the advent of flex work and the aftermath of the Great Resignation, war for talent. I'd be curious to know, what do you consider the hallmarks or key distinctions when it comes to how your respective organizations handle recruitment and talent retention in today's market? We're starting off with a really simple question. President Bullard, we'll start with you.
Sure. Thanks, Max. I'm moved, and I know we're all moved by this recent study produced by Stanford over the course of the last couple of weeks, saying that perhaps work from home employees aren't quite as productive as we thought they were, perhaps 15, 17, 18% less productive. And the same study at the same time says that it's here to stay. And so I think at Pfeiffer, we continue to be flexible. In many ways, college professors have been working from home since the beginning of higher education, grading papers, until 2 in the morning. So I think that's really important to note. I also think that we're looking for a certain grittiness in our best employees, and a certain ability to know that we're hiring self-motivated people. So we have some of our most productive employees in advancement, for example, who have been with the university for over 20 years, working sort of half-time from Boulder, Colorado, and sometimes in the office. And this is a person that began the work-from-home model 20 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And she's, trust just goes so far with your most productive employees. And I think frankness in your annual review about how that's going is really important. And generally, it's important to learn the love languages of your employees. And for most of us, that love language is compensation, I think. But at Pfeiffer, getting people in the right seat on the bus is also really important. I mean, I can't tell high school seniors that my favorite educational psychologist, Friedrich Buechner, who defined your calling as that place where your great giftedness intersects with the world's great need. I can't say that to high school seniors and ask them to come to Pfeiffer and explore calling if I'm not letting my best employees do the same thing and exercise their gifts appropriately. So I think that's a big part of hitting the sweet spot too.
Well put. Cheryl?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I have a unique perspective. I spent 32 years in higher education, and now I work for Catapult Employers Association, representing 2,000 employers across the state, North and South Carolina. And I think the sweet spot for me was always that intersection between what businesses need and what academic institutions can provide with individuals. So I'm going to take a different perspective, since I have a current sitting president next to me, and I can represent the employer's perspective on this. You all know this, right? Talent is hard to find, and it's even harder to get the exact skill set that you're looking for with all of those soft skills that we call, right? The professional skills. I call them the critical skills. It's the things that you hope are being taught in the home. It's the things that you hope are being taught in the school systems, the things that you hope are being taught in the academic institutions. And you talked about internships. Those are great opportunities for students to figure out how to function in the workplace. And so there's this level set of expectation between the employers and the individuals who are coming out now. And the hybrid work environment has just made that even more complex, because now individuals are saying, I want to put me first, and I want to have a career that aligns with my values. And I think employers are struggling oftentimes to think about, how do I find talent that has the skills and the same values that I have, so you can get to the trust factor? Because that's ultimately what it's about, right, is setting that expectation. So now we have 5 generations in the workforce. We have the veterans, the folks who were probably, now, 75 or so. They're still in their 70s. We've got the boomers. We have the Gen Xers, who are leading most organizations now. We have the Gen Ys and the millennials that are coming into the workplace. And every single one of them wants something different. When you think about communication styles, right, you think about the older, senior, mature generation. They were raised face-to-face communication, and they wanted very clear expectations. You've got the Gen Xers in the middle that had to be very self-sufficient, very efficient with things, and it's just rattle off, what do you need done and how do you need it done, right? And then you have the Gen Zers on the other end who are coming out and they lived through this pandemic and they don't know necessarily how to operate in the workforce today because they're used to these social environments where Snapchat is big. They half of them don't use email. It's surprising they don't use email. What do all of your businesses use? Email, right? So they want to snap, they want to be face to face with each other. So there's this interesting alignment across the generations and the workforce. And then you complicate that with the pandemic and work from home and this trust that we inherently should have with our employees. It just makes for a really interesting cultural dynamic in the workplace right now. And we can explore more of that. Welcome. In our next question.
I'm not Max, I'm Keith. Go right ahead, Jessica.
No, that's okay. And I think in just a different perspective, designing higher education facilities for the last 20 years, we do a lot of research and talking with students, and really not just the students that are on your campuses today, but the pipeline of students in high schools and even middle schools. And you stole a lot of my thunder, but that's okay. No, this is why this is great. It's a dialogue because they really are looking for those authentic connections. They want to work for a firm. Yes, salary is important, but it's also looking for companies that align with their values and they're conscious. And they're like, if I'm going to invest myself and my time and my energy, I want to make sure there's an alignment with my passion with the company that I'm working for. And that carries a lot. They also want choice. They want variety, and they want to be able to flex when needed and know that they have that trust. But communication and dialogue is imperative as well. And so I think it's upon all generations that are in the workforce, not those that are just coming in, but those that are leaders, to act as models and coaches, because you can learn both ways. All of us can learn from the younger emerging talent as well as them learning from us.
Just want to say I love that answer your question about the Gen Xers in the house. We know how to get things done, how to make things move, happen. Keith Stanley, I'm with Keith Stanley University Partners. I'm enjoying the Charlotte weather. Then go to the next question. How has Charlotte and North Carolina population growth more broadly impacted local labor? What has been the impacts of new talent moving into the region, and how does that influence considerations around developing workforce pipelines or recruitment efforts?
Do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. I think as we're seeing, we're really shifting into the digital economy. And really, what does that mean? Many institutions, I'm sure those that are here, focusing on STEM, robotics, advanced manufacturing, healthcare. And those are really critical because that's really understanding the skills that are needed for that, because it's constantly evolving, constantly changing. But we also can't forget the other components, the other workforce to help build these facilities. The pipe welders, the electricians, those are skill sets that for individuals who may not be in a traditional four-year path are just as critical and just as important. And so it's really having those offerings, and what does that mean? Whether it's micro-credentialing or upskilling for those that are midway through their career. Again, going back to the idea of choice, because that'll only make our economy stronger when community colleges, four-year institutions really collaborate, understand where are those gaps, and how can we come together to have those offerings to support our economy, our people, and our future growth.
I think we're in an enviable position in Charlotte, North Carolina. And if you don't think that, go look at some of the other places around the country where the out-migration of the workforce exceeds the in-migration of the workforce. The only place right now that is growing in terms of workforce is the Southeast United States. So we think we have it bad here trying to find talent. Call your colleagues up in Detroit, Michigan. Call your colleagues in Des Moines, Iowa, and you'll see that we really are in an enviable position here. People like the climate. We have some very friendly business policies, even though we could be better. We do have very friendly business policies, particularly in North Carolina. And so we are in an enviable position for talent coming in. The challenge of that is what you said here. You've got people who are now living in Boulder, Colorado, trying to work for a company that's based in North Carolina. And the poor HR people in North Carolina are trying to figure out what are the labor laws in Colorado, and how do I need to adjust my workplace policies so that I can attract that talent and give them the flexibility to work from anywhere. That's a lot of what we see with our members, is this, they're trying to be compliant, and they're trying to make sure that they are creating competitive salaries. A salary in Boulder, Colorado is very different than a salary in Charlotte, North Carolina. I know that because I moved from Colorado 20 years ago, and I was shocked at the cost of living difference here. But it's not just that compensation piece and the salaries that make it challenging for employers in our area. It's also trying to stay compliant within all of the labor laws that are happening. It's great to give choice and great to give flexible workspaces, as long as you do that in a way that you can still keep your business afloat in a reputable way.
There's a question later on, I think, listed about the demographics, Cliff. And I think we need to be very nuanced and careful when we talk about it. There, of course, in higher ed, we hear all about, there aren't going to be any applicants to colleges in the year 2026 because we're now 18 years removed from 2008, and nobody had babies in 2008. It was a really scary time, and people kept not having, right? The problem with just taking that for granted is there is this belt between Raleigh, North Carolina, and Columbia, South Carolina, where much of that national rhetoric does not apply. And so I want to underscore what my colleagues have said here. We are so fortunate to be in North Carolina, between Raleigh, North Carolina, and Columbia, South Carolina. We're really in a sweet spot. President Book talked about the 36 private institutions in our state. I attended the inauguration of the president of Sandhills Community College in Pinehurst yesterday. We perhaps have the strongest community college system in the country. Our 57 community colleges are quite strong. And I do hear that we have public four-year universities as well. There's one in, is it Chapel Hill? There's one there. Yeah, there's one there. And there's one here. There's one here in UNC Charlotte and other places. Although I think the student debt discussion is quite interesting. I think sometimes our sticker prices look different than the public schools, but if you look at the average amount of student loan debt of a Pfeiffer and an Elon graduate and compare that to UNC Charlotte and UNC Chapel Hill graduate, you'll find that those numbers are quite similar to one another. So we have wonderful university system here, and I would say to employers here, take advantage of our location and our unbelievably strong system of higher education. When we get to the demographics, Cliff, question later on, I'd like to return to President Book's comment about internships and how area businesses can strike early and often with college students and start growing their finest employees. Because I believe in this generation of young people. I'm around these 18 to 22-year-olds, in the case of our PA school and MHA students, 25-year-olds, and they are incredible. And they are looking for that place where the world's great needs intersect with their great giftedness, and very self-motivated group.
Along the same line, as I talk about this pipeline, it says, while finding talent for today's job seems hard enough, part of the challenge is finding qualified individuals capable of keeping up with today's changing technology landscape. How is the changing tech and innovation landscape forcing new recruitment and retention strategies for your organization? I imagine more people are working from home, and we all have gotten used to this Zoom and stuff that gets on my nerves. How's that played into some of your recruitment strategies?
I guess I'll start since I haven't started from the middle here. Well, first of all, I'll say that for those of you, when I go back to those 5 generations, right, the Gen Ys are technology natives. The millennials are technology natives. Gen Xers are not technology natives. We had to learn that, right? And anybody older than a Gen Xer is a technology migrant. Right? You had to learn that. So there's a lot we can learn from the younger generation when it comes to technology, and they're pushing us in a lot of ways to do things. We don't have enough time in this room to start talking about ChatGPT and how that's being used in the educational systems. But if you're not a believer in it, you better get on board pretty quickly, because it's here and it's here to stay, and it's starting to drive a lot of things differently in the workplace. So, I think the younger generations are going to push companies when it comes to technology in new ways. We've already talked a little bit about the hybrid working environment. There are a lot of people who say, I can do my work just as efficiently from anywhere because I have technology resources. The challenge is, how do you blend that human capability with technology capability? We talk about that a lot at Catapult. We are a remote-first employer. We realized during our merger in COVID, anybody was here in Charlotte was a member of the Employers Association here in Charlotte that merged with the group out of Raleigh, CAI. All of a sudden our workforce changed, and we were no longer geographically bound. And so we had to adopt a different philosophy to go remote first, because we're now a statewide organization. And it didn't make any sense for our marketing team to sit on a Zoom call behind a door in Charlotte and collaborate with their team behind a door on a Zoom call in Raleigh, right? It just didn't make sense. So we had to adapt and think differently about how we were going to approach the workforce. That cannot work for a lot of manufacturers. That just doesn't work. They need to have people on the floor doing the work. So you have to make the right decision for your business based on your business model. And I would say lean into the younger generation, because they can lead us in technology in a lot of ways to think differently about how to use that to be more efficient.
And I just want to add, we should not be scared of technology. There are some really great things that will really continue to drive all of our companies, our firms forward. And just 2 quick examples. Think about maybe an individual who just graduated and English is their second language, or maybe they have some social skills that are not as strong. They can use artificial intelligence and chat to be able to understand how best to communicate with others in a group. It's a tool that will make them stronger and allow them to be more comfortable and allow them to thrive. Or even using extended reality as a simulation tool for those first responders or in healthcare needs, where they can simulate in a safe environment and fail, learn, and then be ready to go when they're in a real environment. And so I think there are really a lot of opportunities that technology can overwhelm. But if we take it one day at a time and one maybe tool at a time, and how is it best apply to your talent, to your staff, to your company, it'll collectively make you all stronger no matter what generation you slot into.
Yeah, I think it's a real challenge and a real opportunity to talk about technology. I've already mentioned some of our employees who are working in a hybrid model. Some of them were doing that before the pandemic struck, and some have continued to do that. I mean, it makes athletic conference meetings easier for the college presidents in the state. It makes the North Carolina independent colleges meetings easier and more accessible for college presidents and other employees here. It has, quite frankly, enhanced the size of our freshman classes in terms of those individuals wanting to major in things like computer science. Last May alone, 4 of our graduates got amazing jobs in the field of cybersecurity. And one of those 4 jobs eventually, because of that graduate's performance early on, led directly to a donation back to our computer science program. So these are just amazing opportunities. And online education, of course, has been with colleges and universities for 2 decades, even 3 decades now. during the pandemic, what struck me, I had just attended the Harvard New Presidents Seminar where there had been some discussions about the pendulum swinging back from online education back to some people seeing the value of in-person education. We talk about the generation that has been born since the year 2000, that sort of came out of the womb and were handed an iPhone. And some of the questions that they're asking, we're hearing, well, I've had access to knowledge for my whole life via search engines, and it's free. Why should I pay for knowledge? And I think the private colleges, with all of our emphasis on things, skill-specific things like doing dosage calculations in a nursing school or having a concentration in cybersecurity within your computer science majors, I think we also want to talk about the distinction between knowledge on the one hand and wisdom on the other hand. So it's one thing to study Adam Smith and Karl Marx in a business program via Google, and it's quite another thing to do that under a PhD in business or economics. Moreover, a PhD who was raised in this region and who knows the business culture in this region. So I just think that the pendulum is also going to swing back. Not to mention the fact that even in the heart of the pandemic, we could not do PA, physician assistant, or nursing or occupational therapy education strictly online. Our students still had to put their hands on one another, right, and learn to draw blood on one another and things like that. So I think this careful embrace of technology is a great thing, but we need to use our wisdom when we embrace it, not just our knowledge.
Scott, I want to keep there with you. You mentioned earlier about this demographics cliff and what that means. What's your insights? What's your thought? How do we deal with what's upcoming that you've already articulated? How do we deal with that?
Sure, move to North Carolina.
I'm
No,
here.
I do. Yeah, I do think there are just some tremendous advantages here. I'm encountering folks that were originally drawn to us because of the erection of our Center for Health Sciences in downtown Albemarle and the PA school and the occupational therapy school and the nursing program on our traditional campus. And as they were bringing employers, for example, Charlotte Pipe and Foundry is relocating from uptown to out near the lake where Pfeiffer's located. I was so grateful. They expressed to me a desire for their employees to know if we're going to relocate from uptown to one of the outer counties in this little 9-county region, that their health care was going to be taken care of for their employees, that they could go to the local hospital and feel great about it. They want to know that their employees are going to have great public school teachers. And so I was so grateful for some major support from a few of these corporations that are based here in Uptown. And when I asked them, when I have a forgetful moment and ask them, why are you doing this for us, a nonprofit? They say things like, send us good cost accountants. The last one you sent to us as a summer intern, we hired that person, and they've been with us 5-6 years now. The last computer science graduate you sent us is in our cybersecurity division, and they perform so well. We need you to send us 3 more. I encountered this week during Welcome Week a young man who was unloading his car and moving into a residence hall, and he had this beautiful wooden dartboard, and it was engraved with a company's name. And I said, well, what, I know the kid, right? So small college, everybody knows everybody. What's up with the dartboard? And he said, the bank, it's a Charlotte bank that I won't mention. The bank that I interned with, they gave this to me as a parting gift, and they said, when I'm ready, they're ready to hire me. So I think just as colleges have been concerned about the demographics cliff, I'd like to encourage the businesses represented here to ponder not just investing in your colleges and universities with a gift, but invest in yourselves and in us by striking early and often with summer interns. Grow them up, help us grow them up, and then grow your own. I think from business to healthcare, we're learning early on that sometimes you get your best employees from summer internships or mid-semester internships.
So start buying dartboards for your interns.
Also dartboard.
Dartboards, maybe some other stuff. Jessica, this question is for you. There was a time in this country when you wanted a profession, you would just become an apprentice and you would just work with the lawyer, the doctor, whomever, the architect. Knowing that it takes such time and investment to get the undergrad degree, advanced or post degrees, how are employers responding to some of the needs when it comes to this education track? And are there other unique opportunities for those who are looking to get into these industries and wanting to employment but see that as a hurdle, these 4, 6, 8-year tracks of education to get into their profession? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do want to just, I think, double down on, Scott, what you mentioned is that any opportunity a student can have in your firm, in your office space, is hands-on learning for all of us is the best way that we retain information. So I think to your point, it's beyond just college students. It's, again, high school students, even elementary school students, getting them excited about what emerging technology, about banking or technology or architecture or education, whatever it might be, just starting to pique their interest. So I think when you talk about internships or even co-ops, having them in your space, observing how you interact, how you work, what the modalities are, it really starts to give them, I think, a leg up versus those that may not. And also, as a company, thinking about your peers out there. I know as an architecture firm, we also partner with smaller, emerging, maybe minority-owned firms who are just starting off and may not know necessarily how to run a business or where to start. We actually co-locate them in our office space so that they can see how maybe another firm operates. We let them use our resources, our copiers, our phones, so that, again, it gives them support. Because when they elevate their experience and their profile, when we lift them up, it lifts all of us up. And so I think twofold. It's not only the pipeline of talent and getting them immersed in the profession, just how etiquette and how you should dress, how you should behave, but then also when you talk about our peers and our other business partners, how we can support each other and lift them up. So I think it didn't exactly answer your question about the curriculum, and I think that's a whole other conversation. We could talk about micro-credentialing and different other ways, but I think overall, this is for this audience would be better addressed.
Jessica, I appreciate that. Did you, Sarah, want to?
Yeah, I think the only other thing that I would add about apprenticeships and internships, having lived on the higher ed side for 3 decades, we made it very easy for students to get into internships, right? That's what colleges, that's what career centers are structured, right? Is to prepare students to get in there. What I always heard then and what I hear even more today is that the employers don't know how to take advantage of those interns. And because most internships are somewhere between 8 and 10 weeks, an employer says, by the time I get the kid ramped up and I teach them where the copier is and how to be productive, I get 2 weeks of productivity out of it, and then they're gone, right? So the ROI is often not there for employers. And so one of the things, having lived in both of those worlds, we created at Catapult last year in partnership with one of our national employers associations was an internship program for employers to tap in and figure out how to be a good partner on the receiving end of that talent, because that's often where this misconnection is. If you think about the 18 to 20-year-old, they're very social, they're involved in sports in college, they're involved in fraternities and sororities, they're in academic clubs, they have this social network, and that's how they get along. They get then dropped into a place of employment with a bunch of us old people, and we are old people, so my 18-year-old tells me. They get plunked in here and they don't know the etiquette, the cues. They're trying to figure it out. They don't want to mess up. They don't want to fail. They don't want to let you down, right? And you as an employer are really, really busy. And you're just like, I just need you to go do this. And so having that alignment as an employer around the expectations of the student coming in, giving them some social wraparound services is really important. And so that's what we did last year, started an internship program for all of our employers to help you learn how to take advantage of this great talent that's coming out and shore up some of that gap.
Any last minute takeaway you would give for the audience that we should understand when it comes to challenges or opportunities when it comes to the workforce? Anything we should take away?
Well, I don't think we talked about it here today. The demographic cliff is not just an age cliff. It is a gender cliff. It is an ethnic and racial cliff. There is a browning and graying of America. If you do not have a DEI strategy as part of your corporate philosophy, you will not have any hope in attracting talent. Because
Thank you, Cheryl.
talent is changing. And so we haven't talked about that. I think that's really critical for employers to have a DEI strategy. I would add, from my education background, DEIB. That's what we talk about in higher ed a lot, is belonging. You have to have a culture of belonging in your place of employment. That's really important to keep talent. And then my last nugget is speed to hire is important. You may think your processes are really fast in going through a lot of your search processes. Keep in mind there are fewer people out there, and they have 3 and 4 offers. So when it takes you a week to get through your hiring practices and go vet them and do your background checks and do everything else, they already have 3 or 4 offers and they're going to ghost you. So those are my 2 pieces of wisdom: DEIB and speed to hire.
No ghosting.
Can I just add really quick to that? Also be open-minded to the non-traditional learner. There are many of us who maybe did not take the traditional path to a career or to a degree, and sometimes their stories and their experiences are more impactful to your staff than maybe those on a traditional path. So that would be my 2 cents.
Scott, last word.
I think I rest my case, Your Honor. I'm so glad the Dean of our graduate school is here. I just want to echo you. He has been very effective, for example, at working with the Randolph County school system to have their current employees add a credential or 2, even just a college degree in education, so we can buttress our public school teaching force. There's so many new ways, and I think thanks to technology in part, so many new ways to secure an education, that this word traditional, no one knows what it means anymore. So thanks for having me.
No problem. Let's give a hand to our panel.
Thank you.